Greetings, it's Iain from RTO here. Welcome to the start of another week, and we're going to kick off this week with part 3 of the Peter Hammill story, and we've reached the decade of the 1990s. Another busy decade for him. He released 10 studio albums, solo albums that is, during this period. Most of them are pretty good. There's one or two tracks, of course, that really didn't float my boat, but that always happens. So we'll get cracking. So coming in at number 10, this was Peter's 23rd solo album, or his 7th of the 90s, released in 1996, and it's called Sonix. On here with Peter, we have got Stuart Gordon on violin and viola, and Manny Elias on percussion. First track on here is an Memoir Bear theme. It's very chamber music because you've got Stuart on the violins and violas. It's okay, it's very solemn piece of music. A Walk in the Dark, it's a very dark piece with some noises. It's a bit strange, it's a little short piece. In the Polish House, just lots of keyboard noises. I couldn't cope with it. Dark Matter, it's quite good. It's very dark, and I quite like it. I like this dark sound. Hospital Silence isn't too bad. It's quite genteel. 4 to the Floor. This is rather long. It's 9 minutes. It does get a bit repetitive in places. Exercise for Louis. Oh, this is very crime thriller, sort of incidental music. I do like it. It's one of the best things on the album. Labyrinth Dreams. This is a 25-minute piece. It's got some eerie songs. It's got a nice little vocal from Peter, but it is too long and it doesn't sort of flow. Then we have Ennemi Moi, full theme, more chamber music, as I call it. A very solemn album with some very dark moments on it. It's got some highlights, but that Labyrinth Dreams is rather too long for me. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 9, we have his second album in the album. It's called The Full House of Usher Opera. It's based on the short story of the same name by Alan Edgar Poe. It's more of an operatic thing. We've got Peter Hammill vocals. He also plays Roderick Usher. Lena Lovitch, Lucky Numbers, plays Madeline Usher. Andy Bell plays Montressor. Sarah J. Morris, the chorus, and Herbert Greinmeyer as the herbalist. It's very operatic. I'll just go through the tracks. Unbelievable Role, That Must Be the House, Architecture, The Sleeper. The lyrics of that are by Alan Edgar Poe. One Thing at a Time, I Shun the Light, Leave This House Dreaming. A Chronic Capsby, The Herbalist, The Evil That Is Done 5 years ago, It Is Over Now. These are all very short little pieces. Influence, Not Rot, She Is Dead, The Beating of the Heart, The Haunted Palace, Edgar Allan Poe lyrics. I Dared Not Speak, She Comes Towards the Door, The Fall. Very hard to follow this. It's just very short, sharp stabs. It's okay. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6.5. Okay, coming in at number 8 is his 24th album overall, his 8th of the decade, 1997, and it is called Everyone You Hold. Joining Peter on here, we have David Lord on keyboards on Everyone You Hold, Manny Elias on the percussions, Hugh Banton, plays the organ on Personality and Bubble, Beatrix and Holly Hamill do the soprano vocals, Stuart Gordon is on the violin again. So the first track is Everyone You Hold. This is really nice. Some lovely voice effects on here. I really like that track. Personality. Love the percussion. Sounds like some glockenspiel on this. Sort of thing I like, with a little bit of guitar put on top. Very good. Nothing Comes. Really good vocal from Peter on here. Excellent track from the Safe House. I do like the guitar work on here. It's very dark again, but it's very eerie at the same time. It's wonderful. Then Phosphorescence is a lovely piece. I love the choral vocals from Holly and Beatrice Hammill. Very nice. Family Affair on that one. Falling Open, very classical sounding. I love Stuart's contribution off. Bubble, my favourite track on here. I like the ambient keyboards from Hugh Banton. Excellent track. Can Do comes next. Very strange, this track. It seems like it's two tracks put together. The guitar solo, sorry, is a little bit off kilter. And the last track is called Tenderness. Really like this track. It's very gentle. Good way to end the album. Bit of a mixed bag here, but it has got some very, very good tracks on it. So I'm going to give this in an RTO ranking of 6.6. Okay, coming in at number 7 now. Remember for the House of Usher. Now, Peter lost the rights to it, but he gained them back in 1999, and he set about revising the piece. He re-recorded it, some of his own vocals, although the parts of the other singers were untouched. He also removed the percussion, added more electric guitar, and remixed the entire recording. And it was called The Fallen House of Usher, Deconstructed and Rebuilt. And it came out in 1999. Now this version is much better. It flows a lot better. The adding of the more guitars made it a little bit more interesting. So out of the two, I prefer this one, so I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 7.5. Okay then, coming in at number 6. This was the third of the 90s. It's 20th overall, and it came out in 1993, and it's called The Noise. On here, where Peter is Manny Elias on the drums, the ever man who pops up everywhere with him, Nick Potter, John Ellis on guitar, David Jackson on saxophones and flute, of course. And the first track on here is called A Kick to Kill the Kigs. Great opening track. I love the rhythm guitars on this. It's a very, very good track. Like a Shot, The Entertainer. Good track again. A great vocal from Peter. It's got a real groove to it. The Noise. Love this. One of my favourite tracks. The flute from David Jackson is superb. It just underlines the track. Celebrity Kissing. My favourite track on here. It's got a great little riff here. It's a good rocker. And the only criticism I've got of this is the drums are a little bit turned down a little bit. Where the Mouth Is, second favourite track on here. The drums are so strong on here. Great riffs. Another fine guitar piece and a great vocal from Peter. The Great European Department Store. Love the keyboards, and the saxophone from David is just top notch. Planet Coventry, another really good track. Strong guitar riffs, well put together piece of music. Primo on the Parapet. I just love the arrangements of this. Guitar work is fantastic. Another very strong vocal from Peter in the 90s. This was a very, very solid album from Peter. Not a bad track on it. I really enjoy this one. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 5. This is the 5th of the decade. He's 22nd overall. Came out in 1996, and it's called X My Heart. Joining Peter here is David Jackson on saxophones and flutes again, Stuart Gordon on the strings, and Manny Elias on the drums. First track is an a cappella track called A Better Time. It's clever, it's very Gregorian chant. There are 2 versions of this on here, and this is a really good version. Amnesiac. This has got a wonderful saxophone piece from David Jackson. Always nice to hear him on Peter's albums. It's got some lovely acoustic guitar on it as well. It is such a good track. Ram Origami. This reminds me so much of very early Van der Graaf Generator. That eerie start, then that wonderful David Jackson saxophone comes in. Very, very good. A Forest of Pronouns. Once again dominated by some David Jackson saxophone. Very, very good track. Earthbound. Very dark track this has. It's a really good arrangement as well. It's a very eerie sort of track. Narcissus Bar and Grill is my favourite track on here. It's just that deep saxophone from David. Great vocal from Peter. One of his best on the album. Material Possession. It's got this sort of mystique East feel to it. I love tracks like that. The vocal delivery is actually stunning from Peter. Come Clean next. Very solid track brought to life by David's saxophone. Then we get A Better Time. This one is more of a piano track. I prefer the a cappella actually, but they're both very good tracks, and it's like a couple of bookends. They open and close the album. Another fine album from Peter, not a bad track, very consistent, so I should give this one an RTO ranking of 8.2. Excuse me. There we go. So coming in number 4. Now this is his 25th solo album overall. His 8th of the decade, and it came out in 1988, and it is called just simply This. Apart from the drums, which are done by Manny and Stuart doing the violins, and David on the saxophone and flutes, Peter plays everything else. So the first track on here is called Frozen in Place, in brackets, Fragment. It's a very short thing, it's just a bit of a Gregorian chart, which goes lovely really into the next track, Unrehearsed. So, love the start. You've got David Jackson on the saxophone, typical sort of Van der Graaf Generator sound, really good track. Stupid, another track dominated by David Jackson's saxophone. The bass line is pretty good as well from Peter, excellent track. Since the Kids, we got a piano start this time, but the combination of acoustic guitar and saxophones is wonderful. That little bit of vocal from Peter really adds to it. Fallen, The City of the Night. It's got that mystique East sound with some lovely violin from Stuart on here. Pretty good track. Unready, a fragment, which is 42 seconds. A bit of solemn violin from Stuart, very short. My favourite track on here, it's one of the powerful vocals from Peter. The combination of the strings and the guitars, a really good track. Unsteady Fragment, 58 seconds. It's a very short piece again. And then we have the very, very good The Light Continent, 14 minutes of really moving music. Everyone contributes here, some lovely sax, some lovely violin, fine vocal, keyboards. It's a really good track. Once again, very consistent album from Peter. Some of the tracks on here are excellent. going back to his old days, so I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, coming in number 3. This is the second of the decade, released in 1992. He's 19th overall, and it's called Fireships. Joining Peter here on keyboards, additional David Lord. David Jackson is on saxophone and flute. Nick Potter's back doing the bass. Stuart Gordon's on the violin, and John Ellis on guitar. My favourite track on here is the opening track, I Will Find You. Love the acoustic guitars on this. They really do shine. Excellent track. Curtains, some lovely violin here from Stuart. Absolutely delightful. His Best Girl, one of the strong vocals on this album. It's got lots of atmosphere and ambience on this track. A wonderful track. Oasis. I like the percussion on it. It's got that very Peter Gabriel tone to it. Excellent track. Incomplete Surrender comes next. Another of my favourite tracks on here. I love Peter's vocals. And a little bit of violin in the background. Some lovely backing vocals on this. Very quirky little track. Fireships. Another very strong track with some wonderful, a great vocal. But it's that saxophone from David that really does it. Given Time, a lovely combination here of keyboards and saxophones. Peter and David just having a good time on that one. Reprise. I like the dynamic start to this. It's quirkiness, it's jolly sort of start. And then it goes into just dramatic piece. It's got a great keyboard and guitar on it. Then we have Gaia, which he's done before, and it's a lovely tune anyway. It's got a nice combination of strings and a choir. Top to bottom of quality work from Peter Hammill on this album. Wonderful album. It's got lots of ambience, so I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.6. Okay, coming in at number 2, this was the first album of the decade. He's 17th, and it's called Out of Water. So joining Peter on this one is Stuart Gordon, who plays a bit of violin on one track. John Ellis is on guitars, David Jackson's on saxophone, and Nick Potter is on bass on a couple of tracks as well. Eventually, Goldfish. I love the bass line on this. It's absolutely brilliant. I love the drumming on this as well. It's really, really strong. Excellent little track. Not the Man. Acoustic guitars at the beginning. Excellent track. Lovely sort of sounds on that one. Great vocal. No Moon in the Water. More wonderful David Jackson saxophone. The guitar is great. I love how Peter holds the notes on this. Our Oyster. It's a dramatic vocal from Peter. He delivers it wonderfully. His combination of that keyboard is really good as well. Something About Isabel's Dance, a dramatic piece played on the violin from Stuart. Really, his only contribution on this album, but it's absolutely stunning. Green Fetus, one of my favourite tracks from this decade from Peter. It's very uplifting. The saxophone is terrific. On the Surface, it's a little bit long. It could have been shortened, but it's still a very good track. A Way Out, lovely arrangement. One of the best vocals here from Peter on this album, and it's a great track to end the album. As I said, all On the Surface was a little bit too long. I don't think it spoils the album that much, because it's just a fine album, and I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. But my favourite album of the 90s is probably one of my favourite albums by Peter Hammill in general, and it's the 5th of the decade. It's 21st. It came out in 1994, and it's called The Roaring Forties. So Peter plays guitars, pianos and vocals. Nick Potter plays bass on a couple of tracks. Stuart Gordon's there on his violin. Simon Clarke plays organ on The Gift of Fire. David Jackson flutes and saxophones and Manny Ellis drums. Sharply Unclear, brilliant track. Love the drumming here for Manny. Really gives it that heartbeat. Fine track. The Gift of the Fire, Talk Turkey Impact. This has got some rich Hammond organ, great vocal from Peter, sort of drawing on his past on that one. Excellent. You Can't Want What You Always Get. This is a really long track, but it's brilliant. The opening riff of guitar is brilliant, and then you get this saxophone that underlies, keeps coming in and out of the track. Really track. Then we have the best track on here, and it's an epic. It's a 19-minute thing called A Headlong Stretch. The best track on the album. It's probably one of the best tracks from the 90s. It's a wonderful piece. It starts off nice and gentle, very proggy. Then the drums keep coming up. The saxophone from David is fantastic. Throw a little bit of violin from Stuart, and then it sort of builds up. Then it just gently finishes like in all good prog tracks. Absolutely a wonderful piece of modern progressive rock. Then we get Your Tall Ship. The combination of pianos and keyboards on here is wonderful. I like how Peter incorporated piano and a synth. Wonderful. A rock steady bass line. It's a nice track to end the album. As I said, I think this is one of Peter Hamill's best solo albums. Absolutely top draw here. Wonderful track. Headlong is just a phenomenal piece of music. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9.5. So there we go. We've done the 90s. Some very good albums in this decade. Next week we move on to the new millennium. We're going to look at his albums in the 2000s. Okay, coming up next is A Perfect Side, and this is another request, and it was from the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and Are You Experienced? So that's what we're doing next, so bye for now.